Some families don't need to yell to hurt you. All it takes is silence and a quiet agreement to take what was meant for you, then say you'll be fine without it. There was a man who walked through cold rain for years, while the car his grandfather bought him sat parked in his sister's garage. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see where our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next twist in this journey. Now I'd like you to hear what he's been carrying in his heart. It had rained for 8 days straight in Bellingham. The kind of rain that soaked through your socks even if you sprinted the last 3 blocks. I didn't sprint though. I walked. Same as every day. By the time I pushed through the heavy glass doors of the building, my jacket clung to me like wet skin. Cold water slid down my collar. The familiar scent of damp carpet and burnt coffee hit me before I even reached the elevators. Mara, the receptionist, looked up from her desk with the same combination of pity and confusion she always gave me. "Hollis, you're soaked again," she whispered, brows pulling together. "Why don't you just drive?" I smiled, tight practiced. I didn't say anything. I never did. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because the truth was the kind that caught in your throat. If I had a car, Mara, I wouldn't be walking. I made my way past the rows of desks, sneakers squeaking on the tile, leaving faint, wet footprints behind me. By the time I got to my cubicle, my hands were cold and stiff. I peeled off my jacket and draped it over the back of the chair, hoping the office heater would do what the sun hadn't. Then I sat down and got to work. Just like always. Like nothing was wrong. Sometimes during the day, I'd glance out through the fogged-up window near the break room. The parking lot below would be full of dry, idle cars. I never looked too long. It made me feel like I was standing behind glass, watching everyone else live a warmer version of life. That night after I got home and hung up my jacket still damp, I got a text from Mom. "Dinner at Grandpa Warren's this weekend. Don't be late. No, how are you? No, hope work's going well. Just an order dressed up as a reminder." I stared at it for a moment before replying with a dry thumbs-up emoji. 15 seconds later, Dad texted too, "Wear something decent." That was always their priority, appearances. How we looked, how we sounded, not how we felt. I didn't argue. Arguing never got me anywhere. It only gave them more ammunition to say I was difficult, emotional, overreacting. So I said nothing. Again. The next morning, I stood at the same crosswalk near the corner of Pine and Cedar, hoodie drawn tight, backpack slung low. Rain tapped rhythmically against my shoulders. The crosswalk signal blinked red. That's when I saw it, a dark gray Subaru Outback rolling to a stop just feet from me. It was familiar, a little too familiar. There was a faded bumper sticker on the corner of the rear window, the kind of sticker someone my age wouldn't choose. The license plate frame had a phrase etched in silver cursive, "World's Best Grandpa." The driver's window was cracked slightly, music drifting out. Through the drizzle, I saw her Delaney, my sister. Her eyes flicked in my direction. She saw me. I know she did. Then just as quickly, she turned her face, leaned toward the radio and turned the volume up. Her car rolled forward when the light changed tires, cutting a smooth arc through the puddles. I didn't wave. I didn't call out. But my stomach tightened. I didn't have proof. But something about that car, about the way she looked away, told me I wasn't crazy. That car wasn't just hers. It was supposed to be mine. But I swallowed it down like I always did. Told myself, it's just a family dinner. Go eat, nod, smile, leave. Still. Something about the way Mom and Dad had been acting lately, their texts, their tone told me they were more nervous about what Grandpa might say than anything else. And that scared me more than the rain. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it had gotten colder, meaner. The kind of rain that felt personal. My shoes were soaked through before I hit the halfway mark to work. The chill bled into my toes and crept up my spine. I walked with my head down, counting sidewalk cracks, crossing streets where cars barely slowed. One of them splashed water straight across my pant leg. I didn't flinch. I was used to it now. At the office, I made my way past the usual hum of keyboards and conversations. Someone behind me said, "This weather's brutal. I'd lose my mind if I didn't have a car." The words hit me square in the back. I kept walking. At my desk, I worked through the chill. The space heater under the cubicle wall clicked on and off, trying its best. I tried not to think about the question Mara had asked yesterday, or the Subaru I'd seen Delaney driving, or the bumper sticker that had no business being hers. But my mind wandered back to a memory I hadn't thought about in a while. Graduation day. Or maybe it was a few weeks after. Grandpa Warren had pulled me aside after dinner, clapped a firm hand on my shoulder, and said something I hadn't forgotten. "You've worked hard, Hollis. Let me take care of the rest. You won't have to walk to work in that damn rain again." I remembered smiling, thinking he meant it as a kind gesture, maybe even symbolic. But now, I wasn't so sure. That night at the house in Bellingham, I sat across the kitchen table from Delaney. She scrolled on her phone earbuds and completely unbothered. A set of car keys sat on the counter behind her. Not just any keys, the same make and logo as the Subaru I'd seen yesterday. I cleared my throat. So, whose car is that Outback, right? Delaney didn't look up. "It's mine," she said flatly without a second thought. Before I could say anything more, Mom's voice cut in from the hallway. "Don't start that conversation. We're going to your grandfather's tomorrow and I don't want things stirred up." Dad, passing behind her, added, without looking at me, "Just focus on work, Hollis. You've got enough on your plate." I stared at them for a long second before turning away. Later in my room, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out an old folder stuff I hadn't touched in years. College acceptance letters, insurance paperwork, a few old emails I'd printed. I dug through until I found something strange, a service email from a local dealership. Subject line 2020 Subaru, routine maintenance reminder, addressed to me, but there was no follow-up. The PDF link was broken. When I tried logging into the system, I got an error account not found. The more I dug, the more frustrated I got. It felt like someone had scrubbed the trail just enough to make me question if it had ever existed. Then I remembered something from years ago Dad had once said, "Let me handle the paperwork, son. I'll get it registered for you. Less hassle." I had trusted him. Why wouldn't I? Until now. Downstairs, I heard muffled voices. I paused, cracked the door slightly. Dad's voice low. "Make sure Warren doesn't start poking around. He still thinks it's in Hollis's name." Mom sharper. "He doesn't know anything. As long as Hollis keeps his mouth shut, we're fine." I shut the door slowly, quietly. My heart hammered in my chest, not from shock, but from the sudden clarity that settled over me. They weren't just being forgetful. They weren't just bad at communication. They knew exactly what they had done. And they were afraid I'd talk. I sat back on my bed, staring at the folder in my hands, and tried to slow my breathing. Everything felt heavier now. Not just the rain, not just the silence, but the years of pretending I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. The next day, we loaded into the car for the drive to Gig Harbor. I sat in the back seat, pressed against the window, watching pine trees blur past in streaks of gray and green. We didn't talk much. When we pulled into Grandpa Warren's driveway, my eyes landed on the car parked neatly near the porch. That Subaru. Same bumper sticker. Same license plate frame. The same car I was told was never mine. And for the first time, I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel hurt. I felt angry. Because I knew they hadn't forgotten. They'd chosen. And now I had a choice of my own to make. I sat at the long wooden table in my grandfather's house, trying to pretend I didn't feel the air shifting. The lights were soft, warm even, and the smell of rosemary and roasted meat hung thick, but none of it could mask the undercurrent running through that room. Delaney scrolled through her phone, tapping with long, bored fingers. My mother was asking questions with practiced cheer things she didn't really care to know the answers to. My father was nodding in time, sipping wine like he'd rather be anywhere else. And Warren Hale, my grandfather, he wasn't saying much. He was watching. It was the clink of silverware that broke the lull. Then came his voice. "Hollis," he said, turning his head just slightly toward me. "How's that car I bought you running these days?" My body stiffened. My fork hovered midair. And in the same breath I felt the heat of everyone's eyes shift. I blinked. What car? Everything stopped. Delaney's thumb froze mid-scroll. My mother's smile flattened halfway through a word she never finished. My father's jaw set so tight I could hear his molars grind. Warren's eyes narrowed. The Subaru Outback, he said. The one I bought you when you got promoted last year. You remember. I sent the receipt and that birthday card said now you wouldn't have to walk to work anymore. Still driving it, I didn't know what to say. My throat closed in on itself. It was like I had stepped into a room I wasn't supposed to be in, one that had always been there, just behind the walls. No, I said slowly. I never got a car. No one moved. The only sound came from the clock on the wall ticking like a timer that just ran out. Then Delaney looked up, her face pale. My mother reached for her water glass with a trembling hand. My father tried to recover voice smooth but cracked at the edges. Hollis doesn't need a car. He likes to walk. Builds character. We've always said that. That's not what I asked, Warren said, setting his fork down with a metallic clatter. Where is the car I bought my grandson? Silence again. I looked at my father. I saw something shift behind his eyes, an old muscle twitch like he was reaching for a script that had been rehearsed too many times. He tried. It's just... The timing didn't work out. Hollis was moving around. Delaney needed wheels for school, for Warren cut him off. You gave it to Delaney. It wasn't a question. Nobody answered. He pushed back his chair with enough force that it scraped loudly against the floor. Wait here. He walked out of the room without looking back. I sat motionless, hands in my lap, mind spinning. I wasn't confused anymore. I was humiliated. I was angry. I was done pretending I misunderstood. Because if Warren really had bought that car for me and my parents handed it to Delaney like it was theirs to give, then every freezing walk to work, every muddy splash at the crosswalk, every polite shrug I gave when someone asked why I didn't just drive had been for what? So Delaney could have the freedom I wasn't allowed, so they could keep the lie going. The clock kept ticking. And in the hallway, Warren's footsteps echoed like a countdown to something none of us were ready for. Nobody spoke while he was gone. The air was syrup thick. My mother picked at her napkin like it might unravel the tension. My father kept looking at the door like he could will Warren not to return. Delaney stared straight ahead, her lips pressed so tightly together the color had drained from them. I sat there trying to keep my hands from shaking under the table. Then Warren came back. He wasn't holding much, just a manila folder, thin but heavy enough with meaning. He didn't sit down. He placed it on the table slowly, deliberately. You asked what car, he said to me, voice low. Let me refresh your memory. He opened the folder. Inside were 2 neatly clipped papers, one the sales receipt with my name on it. The second, a printed email confirmation of registration instructions dated nearly a year ago. I leaned forward. My name. In black and white. On a car I'd never touched. Delaney let out the smallest sound, barely more than a gasp. My father spoke first, too fast. Dad, listen. It's not that simple. No, Warren snapped. I gave you the money. I asked if you'd help handle the paperwork. I told you it was for Hollis. You nodded, smiled, told me, don't worry, Dad will make sure he gets it. My mother reached for calm. We didn't lie. We just made the best choice for the family. I turned toward her. The best choice was letting me walk to work in the rain every day while Delaney drove the car you told everyone was mine. You're older, she said. You can handle more. I laughed, dry, stunned. That's your justification. Delaney spoke finally. I didn't know it was meant for you. I turned to her, not shouting, just plain and tired. You saw me. At least 3 times last month alone. Corner of Chestnut and 13th. I was soaked. You turned your music up and drove right past me. Did you really think I enjoyed that? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. My father exhaled hard. Don't turn this into something it's not. What exactly is it then, I asked. A misunderstanding, he said. An internal family matter. No, Warren said sharply. It's theft. That word hung in the air like smoke. Then he looked at me. That car was registered under your name. I have the paperwork. I never signed anything to transfer it to Delaney. Neither did I said. Because Warren said, turning slowly to my father, you told me you'd handle it, that it'd be easier if the dealer sent everything through you. My father didn't deny it. His silence did the job. Then he muttered, "It was just more practical." Warren's jaw clenched. What you did wasn't practical. It was dishonest. He turned and walked toward the hall again. "I'm getting the title," he said. "And tomorrow we're going to the DMV. He disappeared." My parents turned to me immediately. "Don't embarrass us," my mother said, her voice a hiss. "You need to think about the bigger picture," my father warned. "This doesn't just affect you." "No," I said. "It already did." They didn't answer. Delaney stood slowly. She looked like she might say sorry or at least try, but then her eyes dropped and she sat back down without a word. I didn't move. I just stared at the empty doorway. Warren had vanished through the folder still lying open on the table. The clock on the wall ticked louder now, and I knew whatever came next, the days of silence were over. When Warren walked back into the dining room, everything went still again. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. The weight of the thick envelope in his hand said enough. He held it like a verdict. Then he set it down, not in front of me, but squarely in front of my parents. The sound it made when it hit the table wasn't loud, but it made the water glasses tremble. It echoed louder than anything we'd said that night. "I'd like some answers," he said simply. He opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of neatly ordered papers. The first was the purchase agreement for the Subaru Outback. My name was typed in bold on the line labeled recipient. Underneath was a note scribbled in Warren's familiar handwriting. "For Hollis, proud of your promotion. You'll need this for the commute." Asterisk. He flipped the page. Next was the sales invoice and transfer instructions, all routed to my address, my apartment on the East End, not my parents' house. All dated, all clear. Then came the insurance documents. Warren tapped one page with his finger. "This is where things start to go sideways." He looked at me. "Hollis, did you ever sign anything to give this car to Delaney?" I shook my head. "No. I've never even seen that car up close. I never held the keys. I never saw the title. No one ever mentioned anything about transferring it. Nothing." My father cleared his throat. "Maybe you forgot. We were helping with the paperwork." Remember, Warren's voice cut through. "If you were helping, why was Hollis walking to work in the rain every day?" The question landed hard. My mother tried a different tactic. "We didn't want this to get ugly. It's family. Can we not make it legal?" That word made my stomach turn. Family. I spoke before I could stop myself. "You didn't ask me once why I was drenched at work. Not when I showed up late. Not when I came in shivering. My boss offered me an umbrella. My coworker offered me a ride. But you two never even asked." Silence. Warren went back to the papers, laying out the registration and insurance docs. "Someone signed Hollis's name here." He pointed at the signature line. I leaned in. It looked like my name, but off. Too careful. Too rounded. It didn't match how I signed things, years of scrawling it on delivery receipts, prescriptions, forms. Warren looked at me. "That your signature?" "No," I said quietly. "That's not mine." "I didn't think so," he murmured. Delaney made a sound, just a soft inhale, but then she blurted, "Dad told me to say it was mine if Grandpa asked." The room froze. My father turned to her sharply, but it was too late. She realized what she'd said and covered her mouth, eyes wide. My mother's face drained of color. Warren's gaze didn't waver. "So not only did someone forge Hollis's name, you instructed your daughter to lie if asked about it." Nobody responded. My father's voice rose. "This is ridiculous. Hollis, don't act like some victim. You've always had what you needed." "You were fine." "Was I?" I asked. "Or did you just decide I could handle being overlooked?" He kept going. "Delaney needed the car more. You live near work. You can walk. You've always managed. And that, I said coldly, is the problem. You call it strength when I go without so you don't have to feel guilty. Warren looked at them both like he was seeing them for the first time. You turned one child into the mule, and the other into royalty. My mother snapped. That's not fair. No. He replied, what you did to Hollis wasn't fair. He pulled another document from the pile. This is the DMV file. Title was requested to be transferred under family claim. Claimed recipient unavailable. Signature provided. He pointed again. Not Hollis's. My father started. Warren cut in. This crosses a line. If this signature was faked and that's not just family drama. That's a legal offense. My mother reached out to grab the stack of papers, but Warren pulled it back swiftly. No, he said. No one touches this but me now. She tried again. We can talk this through. Don't do this. I'm not going to let you sweep this under the rug, Warren said, voice hard. And you will not corner Hollis into silence. His voice lowered, but it carried sharp as glass. From this moment forward, no one touches any documents, and no one pressures Hollis to keep quiet. If you try, I swear to God, I will involve more than just lawyers. No one dared move. I looked down at the stack of documents in front of me, my name, my address, my future paper after paper that proved I wasn't crazy. Across the table, my parents looked at me not with guilt, but betrayal. As if I'd done something wrong by forcing this into the light, Warren rose from his chair. We'll resolve this tonight. He didn't say how, but I knew whatever came next was going to change everything. After Warren's declaration, the dining room felt like it shrank. The walls didn't move, but they pressed inward closer with each breath. He stood at the head of the table like a judge, no longer just a disappointed grandfather, but something sterner, unyielding. The car comes back to Hollis, he said. Tonight. My father stood up fast, fists balled. You're out of line. You want to call the cops on your own kids over a misunderstanding. Warren didn't flinch. Number one, I want to call the truth what it is. This wasn't a misunderstanding. You used my name, you used my money, and you used my grandson. You're going to destroy the family over this, my mother said sharply. Really, Warren's voice stayed even. The family destroyed itself the moment it decided one child was worthy of comfort and the other was only ever supposed to endure. My mother's face twisted. Hollis always exaggerates. He acts like the world's on his shoulders. I walked through sleet, I cut in. Through sideways rain. Through snow. I showed up to the office soaked to the skin. I got pitied. I got laughed at. And not one of you thought to ask why. She fell quiet. Delaney whispered, Please don't hate me. I turned to her. I don't hate you. But I won't pretend you didn't know. She covered her face. I looked back at the table, then back at my parents. This wasn't just a car, I said slowly. This was a pattern. If you could take that without asking what else have you taken that I never knew was mine, that hit different. Warren nodded grimly. Exactly. He walked to the sideboard, opened a locked drawer, and pulled out a second folder. I've kept everything. Dates, emails, receipts, insurance calls, DMV notices. I knew something was off, I just didn't know how far it went. He laid a page on the table. This email, he said, was forwarded to me by accident. That's how I found out Delaney had the car, not through honesty, through a mistake. My father's voice cracked. Because Hollis would have been fine either way. He always is. Warren stared at him. So you assumed his silence meant consent? My father didn't answer. Warren turned to me. Tomorrow morning you won't walk in the rain. I'll make sure of it. For a second I couldn't speak. My chest ached not from pain but from a kind of relief I'd never known. Someone was finally saying, enough. Warren wasn't finished. He turned to the room and his voice changed again, quieter now but deadlier. Tonight isn't just about returning a vehicle. It's about making sure none of you can take Hollis's future out of his hands again. My mother's voice rose, panicked. What do you mean by that? Warren didn't answer. Instead, he looked at me with something deeper than concern. He looked at me like someone with a plan. Finish your plate, he said softly. Then come with me. I need to show you something. He stepped out of the room. No one spoke. I sat frozen. I could hear it soft, almost imperceptible, the sound of another envelope being opened in the next room. And I knew the next thing he showed me would change the power dynamic forever. The house was quiet now, but it wasn't peace. It was tension. The kind of silence that grows thick right before something cracks. The plates had been cleared, the leftovers boxed away, but no one had moved from the dining table. Mr. Warren rested his hand on a second envelope, thicker than the first, darker, worn at the corners like it had been held more than once, like someone had debated what to do with it for a long time. I watched him tap it once against the edge of the table, then slide it toward me without a word. But before I could reach for it, he spoke. Where's the car right now? The question landed like a rock. My mother blinked. My father straightened in his chair. Delaney parks it behind our house, my father said too quickly. Who has the keys? Mr. Warren asked. I do, Delaney said, eyes low. They're in my purse. Whose name is on the insurance? He pressed. My mother hesitated. Delaney's. For now. For now, Mr. Warren echoed quietly. Then here's what we're going to do. He turned to me. Tomorrow morning I'll go with you. We'll retrieve the car. Or, he added, looking at Delaney, we can do this tonight. No, my father snapped. You're not dragging this out into the street for the neighbors to see. This is a private matter, my mother added quickly. No need to make a scene. Mr. Warren leaned back in his chair, his voice slow and level. Truth isn't a scene, and neighbors don't change what's right. Con, my father turned to me, voice rising. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding. I looked at him, and for once I didn't let it slide. You watch me walk to work every day in the rain, I said. You let me show up to my job soaked, exhausted, and humiliated. And not once did you ask why. My mother reached for the emotional lever. Delaney's used to it now. She depends on that car. You've always managed Hollis. You don't need things the way she does. I turned to Delaney. If you didn't know it was this bad, I asked, why did you always look away when you saw me on the street? She flinched. I thought you were just walking. I didn't know you didn't have anything else. Mr. Warren opened a manila folder and pulled out a sheet. This is the insurance update form. Dated 4 days before Hollis started walking to work. 4 days. That's not coincidence. He laid it on the table. Even upside down, I could see my name nowhere on that form. That's the day I murmured. That's when I started walking. And suddenly it clicked, like tumblers falling into place inside a lock. Not just the car, not just this one betrayal. I started tracing back through all the times my parents had said, let us handle the paperwork. The savings bonds that vanished. The summer job checks I never saw. The FAFSA application they said they'd take care of, but somehow never submitted. The more I thought, the more I realized how often they'd taken over and taken. This wasn't a one-time thing, I said. This is how you live. My mother bristled. My father looked away. Mr. Warren didn't react. He simply picked up the second envelope and opened it. I was going to wait, he said. But after tonight, I don't think I should. He laid out the documents, a trust agreement. My name in bold across the top. His signature at the bottom. Legal language detailing funds, provisions, protections, and one clause that stood out in black ink. Exclusively accessible to Hollis Rowe. I set up a trust for you, he said. It's locked down. Your parents cannot manage, withdraw, or interfere. My father's face drained of color. You're cutting us out, he said, nearly shouting. After everything we did for you, I'm not cutting anyone out. Mr. Warren said, his voice firm. I'm making sure he's not bled dry by people who keep calling it love. My mother's voice sharpened. And what about Delaney? Mr. Warren looked at her with an expression colder than I'd ever seen on his face. Delaney has benefited from what didn't belong to her for too long. My father stood now towering over the table. His voice shook, but not from weakness. Hollis doesn't need all this. He's strong. He always has been. He's just using you to get more. I didn't match his volume. I didn't need to. I'm not asking for more, I said. I'm taking back what was already mine, and I'm drawing a line. Mr. Warren turned his head, slowly looking at my father as if seeing him for the first time. Being strong doesn't mean you have to stay quiet when someone robs you. Silence fell. I took the folder in my hands. I felt its weight. Not heavy, but solid. Real. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission. I'll pick up the car tomorrow, I said. And I'm separating my future from yours. That starts now. My father's jaw clenched. My mother didn't speak. Delaney cried quietly, but I had already decided. Tomorrow I was done walking in the rain. It was still gray the next morning. Rain misted against the windows, not a downpour, but steady. That Washington kind of rain, the kind that never leaves, only lingers. Mr. Warren picked me up at 8 a.m. sharp. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Just handed me a thermos of coffee and nodded toward the driveway. We drove in silence. Delaney was already outside when we arrived. She stood on the porch hugging her elbows, eyes swollen from crying. The keys were in her hand. My parents were behind her, flanking the doorway like gatekeepers. My mother folded her arms across her chest. My father stood with his hands in his pockets, jaw tight. "You don't have to do this," my mother said, eyes locked on me. "Yes, he does," Mr. Warren replied before I could speak. "It's overdue." "This is embarrassing," my father muttered. "What will the neighbors think?" Mr. Warren stepped forward. "They'll think the truth finally showed up." Delaney stepped off the porch and held the keys out to me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to take from you. I just thought you didn't mind." I took the keys. I didn't say anything yet. Then I walked past her and opened the driver's door. It was the first time I'd touched the car. My name had been on the paperwork, my face in the recipient column. But this was the first time I'd sat in the seat. I slid into the front seat, gripped the wheel, and took a breath. It wasn't about the Subaru. It was about no longer accepting less. Mr. Warren stayed behind to finalize paperwork, title transfer, updated insurance, and notarized declaration. Everything by the book, everything bulletproof. My parents hovered silent now. My mother finally spoke. "We raised you. We did everything for you. And this is how you repay us." I got out of the car slowly, looked her in the eyes. Raising a child isn't a license to own them. She blinked. My father didn't look at me. I turned to Mr. Warren. He gave a single nod. "Everything's locked down now," he said. "They can't touch what's yours." Then he looked at my parents. I've seen enough to know this wasn't an accident. This was a pattern. They didn't reply. I drove to work. The rain picked up slightly on the way, just enough to wash the windshield clean. But inside the car, I was dry. I pulled into the lot, parked in my usual space, and got out. No umbrella, no soaked sleeves, no one staring at me like I was a ghost. Mara saw me from the front desk. She smiled, then tilted her head slightly. "New ride," I just nodded. "Old ride. New respect." She laughed softly and buzzed me in. As I walked down the hallway, I didn't feel like someone who'd won. I felt like someone who'd stopped surrendering. The definition of strength had changed for me. It wasn't swallowing hurt or pretending things didn't matter. It was standing up even if your voice shakes and saying that's enough. I didn't leave the past behind. I carried it. But I carried it on my own terms. And I didn't forgive. I didn't forget. I simply set the boundary. This is my car. This is my future. This is my decision. If they call that breaking the family, so be it. They broke me long before I ever pushed back. I turned the ignition. Wipers swiped across the windshield. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't walking in the rain anymore. There's a moment in life, not loud or dramatic, where something inside you just decides that you're done walking in the rain for people who sit comfortably in the dry. That you're done confusing survival with love, silence with loyalty, and tolerance with peace. This story wasn't about a car. It never was. It was about what happens when the people who are supposed to protect you benefit from your silence. When family becomes the reason you're told to stay small, stay grateful, stay quiet. And when you finally break that pattern, you don't just get back a vehicle, you get back your voice. What I keep thinking about is this: strength is not how much you can endure. It's how much truth you're willing to carry into the light. Because the longer you let someone else define your worth, manage your future, rewrite the story, you become a stranger in your own life. And that's a price too high for any peace built on pretending. So here's what I've learned. Walking that long stretch of rain-soaked pavement and finally driving away from it. You're allowed to outgrow what hurt you. You're allowed to set boundaries, even if it disappoints the very people you grew up trying to please. You're allowed to stop handing out explanations to people who never offered you understanding. And no, doing those things doesn't make you cold or difficult or selfish. It makes you whole. Because the truth is, family should never require your silence as proof of your love. We don't talk enough about how radical it is to simply say, "This isn't okay anymore," and mean it. To make a different choice. To choose a future where dignity isn't negotiated. And maybe not everyone will understand your decision. Maybe some will call it betrayal. But as we saw in this story, sometimes the very people accusing you of dividing the family were never too concerned when it was you being divided from joy, from fairness, from even the basic chance to feel seen. So if you've ever been there, if you've ever walked through life under someone else's shadow trying to be the easy one, the strong one, the one who doesn't make waves, I hope this story reminds you, you deserve more than silent suffering disguised as harmony. You deserve your own keys to your own life. And when you finally take the wheel and drive away from everything that once kept you stuck, you might just realize you weren't the problem. You were just never allowed to arrive. As we come to the end of this story, there's one thing I've learned that I hope resonates with all of us. We don't always get to choose the battles that come our way, but we do get to choose how we face them. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away from what's wrong, it's finding the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it means risking everything we've known. In life, it's easy to fall into the trap of doing what's expected, of letting others shape our path. But real strength doesn't come from simply enduring it comes from knowing when it's time to take control, to set boundaries, and to walk towards a future that reflects who we truly are, not who others want us to be. We're all capable of making choices that honor ourselves even when it's difficult. And sometimes the best thing we can do is acknowledge the past, but not let it keep us from the future we deserve. If any part of this story spoke to you, if you've ever felt like you were walking in someone else's shadow, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you've been there too, or maybe this hit close to home. If you want to share, leave a comment below. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to stay connected with more stories like this. After all, we all have a story to tell, and sometimes the best way to heal is to share it with others. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you. See you next time.